And while it's loading, as soon as it logs live, I will try to share it to my pages.
Yeah.
They may be able to see it already.
I see it. I'm going to share it now.
All right. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
In case you can see us, this is Rebound Your Health TV with Dr. Z. And as you can see, I have two beautiful guests with me today. If you've been following us, we've been talking about it. Thank you for your prayers. We're going to tell you a little bit about why we're here, of course. And please go ahead as soon as you get into this room, hashtag MVP, and please share this broadcast. It's going to be extremely important. And no, what they say, straight shooter, no chaser. We're definitely potentially going to save your life or someone else's, because this information is just not common knowledge all the time. And we don't want to take for granted that it always is. While I'm going to give it about 60 seconds or so, we're going to also share it with people. So about 60 more seconds, we're going to jump right into this very, very, very important conversation when your doctor is the patient, okay? So please go ahead, hashtag MVP when you get into the broadcast. Hi, Ayana. Oh, hi, Ayana. Thank you for joining us. Please share this broadcast. Go ahead and click that share button and tag at least 2 friends. We're going to make sure that everybody can hear this information. And if you're here on the replay, hashtag replay. Thank you for joining us. Please share.
Sorry, that was my feedback trying to
No
share as well too.
problem.
You're sharing. That's good.
Sharing,
Yes.
that's right. We're sharing. We want to really want to make sure everybody gets this information. So thank you all for coming. We're going to give our beautiful introductions in just a few seconds here as we go ahead and share this information. Again, welcome, welcome, welcome. When your doctor is the patient, we don't take this for granted whatsoever. And of course, we appreciate all of your prayers. Hi. And we do see people kind of pop in, but go ahead and let us know who you are, where you're coming from, so we can say hello to you formally and specifically. Hashtag MVP when you get into it, so we can actually give you a shout out right on back. We want to be able to share some love with you. These beautiful people. And those of you who are jumping in, if we don't say hello right away, common knowledge probably by now, there is a 15 to 20 second delay or so, at least where I am. So we want to make sure that you do understand that. And if there's a 20-second delay with our love, then just know that was charged to the head and not the heart. We're going to get right into this. Mine is a little bit delayed, but I see Dr. Hodon and Dr. Renee holding it down for me to get these. I think my computer is overloaded. So please share. I'm going to rely on you all to please share, so we don't have to delay this information and getting into this broadcast. Thank you, Dr. Sam. Mwah, mwah, mwah. I see your shares happening, so we really appreciate that. Again, we want to welcome you to Rebound Your Health TV with Dr. Z. Okay, but today is not just with Dr. Z. We also have beautiful special guests. We have Dr. Renee, we have Dr. Hodon, who are going to give their illustrious introductions themselves. But I want to tell you a little bit about why we're here in the first place, okay? Yes, from the title, as you can hear, and I'm going to give a disclaimer already. If you hear me cough, I am still technically recovering. So please excuse that. But I think we all are in some level. So give us some mercy. But definitely we're here to just kind of give this information. So there's been, obviously, we're in the middle of a pandemic. That's obviously, right? That's obvious. COVID-19 is still rising. Okay, that's obvious as well. What we don't always hear from is the perspective of a doctor when they do become the patient. And also we do want to further have this conversation about, is a negative test always negative? We'll kind of tap into that a little bit and what kind of things you need to be looking out for. But more importantly, this is a matter of the heart too, right? Because all three of these women that you see on your screen before you, we are doctors. That's the obvious part because part of the title, but we're also mothers. We're also wives. We're also sisters of someone, right? We're also cousins. We are human beings and we are all in this together. So 3 doctors, 3 unique stories, but we're your sister. We're mothers and wives and so on and so forth, just like you, who happen to be physicians, proudly so. And for those reasons, we are afforded opportunity as well as obligation to be a beacon of information that is accurate information. That is accurate information that's going to empower you, not to keep you powerless. All this information that we want to give to you is about staying informed so that you're not afraid. Don't be afraid, be informed. And this is what this platform is about. So again, hello, thank you for joining us. I can't see your names all the way in the comments, but please know that we're here and we're gonna try to make sure we get to your questions as well. And please share this. As soon as you get into this broadcast, click that share button and tag two people to come in here to this broadcast. So without further ado, I would love to introduce to you again, my super friends, my friends. Their heart is just bigger than this world. So we are all so blessed as human beings to be afforded the opportunity to really have physicians like this. You know, these are women truly that they lead with their heart as it relates to how they take care of their patients, obviously, and their families as well. So without further ado, please, Dr. Hodon, bless us with your beautiful introduction.
Hi, everybody. I'm Dr. Hodon. I am a board certified OBGYN and women's health expert. I am here today as I talk about health and wellness to my sisters in Hoya chat. I want to share with everybody, men and women, that we are all in this together. This COVID is a part of our lives and we will never forget it. So it's important that we are open about it if we are affected by it, our loved ones, so that we can learn from each other. So I'm grateful to be here with you.
Thank you. And Dr. Renee.
Yes, hi, I'm Dr. Renee Darko. First, I would love to thank Dr. Zarinah for inviting me on. I really appreciate your graciousness for, allowing me to tell my story. But again, my name is Dr. Renee, and I'm also a board certified OBGYN. Many of you may know me as the pre-med strategist. But today I'm going to be coming in talking about this very important topic about when your doctor is the actual patient. And I think it's going to be a very unique perspective to hear for some people because we often don't think about doctors as patients. So thank you.
And I'll add thank you to Dr. Zarinah, because we wouldn't be here today if you didn't challenge us to say, come on, ladies, we can do this. Coughing or not, we're going to do it.
Right.
Sorry, I'm going to make us more cough.
You made me sound like a bully, but those who know me in real life know that I'm like push ahead. And honestly, if I could like be completely honest with our audience here, you all know I try to be transparent. I actually tried to get these ladies to do it a little earlier, but thank God, again, I am a wife, so I had a husband who knows even better, right? And thankfully, his recommendation was like, "You tripping, girl? You tripping?
You're not ready yet.
You ain't ready."
Yeah, I was ready to cough up a lung and everything and give it to the people. But thankfully, we pushed it back. I think obviously the universe got, his plan is always best. And this was the better plan.
Yeah.
So we definitely want to thank the husbands for holding us down during this time. Because again, like I said, this is definitely a matter of the heart, So without further ado, I would like for us to really dive into to our stories. And I would like to start off again, no specific order, but I want to kind of touch on, if you will, ladies, to when you speak on your unique stories as they are, and we all will give that to you, to our MVPs, our audience listening to hear, and anybody else listening. But we want to make sure that what we want you to pay attention to, because before this broadcast ends, we're going to definitely give you some takeaways, okay? Mm-hmm. Some take-home messages within these stories. That's what we're here to do, is to serve. So please listen intently, but also listen for the takeaways, that if you don't leave with anything else, make sure that you're also typing in. Y'all know I love my note takers. Who are my MVP stars? Come on and get into the notes, because some people are going to come back for the replay. And we also just want to reiterate the point. When you type it and you hear it, that's how you really synthesize and make sure that you understood the information. Okay. So we're going to be active listeners today, right? We're going to be active listeners. Everybody thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up, so that we can make sure that we actually take this information and do something with it, right? Not just hold it to ourselves. That's why we talk about click that share, share, share. It's not about how many likes. It's really about how much and how big our reach can be, so that we can, again, empower people with the accurate information and keep them informed. Okay. So that being said, Dr. Hodon, if you could touch base, because I'm actually going to say Dr. Renee after you, because I feel like it'll make a lot more sense. I would love for you to describe to them, maybe where did your symptoms start? Okay, because we obviously know we were the patients, all three of us in some way. When did your symptoms start? How did they appear? And when did you become aware or alarmed and feel like, you know what, this might be COVID-19? And maybe take us through the steps of just you as your personal experience. Not necessarily, you don't have to be, scientific per se, but let our audience really understand, so that we can then bring it all back to the fact that we are doctors and how that was actually be able to help us as patients.
So I didn't say that in the beginning, so don't mind me. I'm a little bit off, and I'm going to be transparent. If it wasn't for Dr. Renee's reminder and Dr. Zarinah's, I had thought we were starting at 6:30 Central. So Facebook played a trick on me, but I'm here, and I'm so grateful to be here. So I'm a board certified OBGYN. And so I noticed, when you're on call, we do 24-hour shifts, you're tired. And I thought I was just tired, but I just noticed in my last shift that I'm going back into the call room, mind you, babies come in the middle of the night. So I was a little bit like off, and I was a little like, felt like I was about to pass out. And I thought, oh, that's not me, but maybe I just need to go lay down. So I went home the next day, really. And I was like, oh, let me just rest. And I didn't feel right. And I thought, well, maybe I just need more time to recover from that shift. And the next day I woke up with coughing, shortness of breath that night. I felt a little bit more short of breath, and then getting more wheezing. My blood pressure skyrocketed. It was kind of high the night before. So I have a history of asthma, and I also have a history of blood pressures in my pregnancies. Both pregnancies ended up being severe preeclampsia, and then having kind of been watched the last 2 years more closely for blood pressures. But I've been off my medications. So I was like, I'm good. This is not normal. And so I called my family doctor, and the headache started. And I was like, oh, Lord, I feel like a train hit me, So my bad. I thought my phone was off. So that's my family calling me right now. They always do the hourly or few hour checkups on me as I'm in a hotel to make sure everything's okay. So and then I was like, okay, fine, I'll go get tested, and I'll be on the safe side and not think this is just the asthma. Allergies, kind of a workup coming on here. And then when I got tested, I just started getting more fatigued as the days passed. And it took about 3 days for the test to come back. It was negative, but the cough just kept getting worse. The breathing treatments weren't helping. Anything that I did that I normally do in my routine, and then added stuff, and my blood pressure wouldn't go down. And I really worried. And so the test came back negative, but I was going on a different side. I wasn't getting better with rest when you're supposed to, right? Yeah, and you're supposed to sleep and not feel refreshed. And so I then knew as the days passed that my blood pressure wasn't coming down. Headaches, nausea started, chills started, and then I lost my smell and my taste. And I would be in contact, both of you, and very transparent in the sense. Thank you so much, Dr. Renee and Dr. Zarinah, for speaking with me, checking on me, and many others. Dr. Sam, who's my naturopathic physician, who's been on me like she's a general, and I love you, and that's all with love, okay? Because we try to hold each other accountable, but we want to be strong, right? We want to keep going. I'm like, this is just, I just did a lot of shifts back to back. This just, it's just catching up with me. So I was in denial, and it's like, okay, I really can't be in denial. I'm glad I quarantined myself before my tests came back, and I'm getting better. I don't cough as much, and I don't feel like I cough like my lung out. That's what I was feeling like. And I don't, I do at times feel a little bit of passing out. and my oxygen dropped, so I could monitor my oxygen. I got my blood pressure machine. My blood pressure is still high, but we're working with it. And recently had to go to the ER, even though I didn't want to, kicking and stubborn, as at times we can be, because my blood pressure went too high and I wanted to pass out more often. So I got some IV fluids. Thank you, Dr. Renee, Dr. Sam. They were like, did you go? What happened? Did you get back to the hotel okay? Yes. I barely made it to the ER and they took good care of me and I'm back. And so that's been my journey. It's kind of not been clear cut. And these symptoms are not clear cut. It's not just cough, fever, and shortness of breath. I had the cough and the shortness of breath. I really just was like, okay. And then I went more GI symptoms and the dizziness. That was the worst feeling, like passing out. I did not pass out, but I fell, or I would like sit and I'd be like, I can't move. I just have to sit here until I gather myself back up. That's about it for now.
Thank you for sharing that detailed. And again, it's really critical for people to understand. I want you to pay attention to, please, what Dr. Hodon spoke on in terms of how she described her symptoms, because again, some variation of what we hear as classic, right? But in some ways, maybe not so much. So we want you to advocate for yourself, essentially. We want you to advocate for yourself. If there's someone that you know that are not in a position to advocate for themselves, then we want you to hear her and hear us clearly so that you can advocate for them. So we're going to turn the corner. I'm actually saving Dr. Renee for last because there's just some very poignant points in that I want her to share that goes actually beyond her test results. So we're going to save her, so to speak, for last. Well, not last, but following me. But I will describe to you all my symptoms as well, which actually is really different than how Dr. Hodon's presented, actually. So for me, it was some weeks ago now, in hindsight, and everything is retrospective in a lot of ways, because in hindsight, my very first symptom actually was a loss of smell. And I generally think I don't smell that well, and it was allergy season. So I did dismiss it, actually, and didn't really give too much credence to it. The irony in that, in hindsight, was there actually was a moment in my household where there was, the second fridge, right, that we thought went out. And the girls, my children were young, and my husband kept saying, "What is that smell? It reeks." And I didn't smell it. And then they got closer, like, "No, you don't smell it. It's coming all the way up the stairs." No, didn't smell it. But even then, at that moment, dismissed it. But in hindsight, that was the sign I should have grabbed onto. And then probably 3 to 4 days later, boom, it hit me, where I started to have profuse, frequent belly over diarrhea that I would say was extremely watery, okay? And I'm being pretty open and transparent. We're not going to be squeamish or whatever. We just want to give it to you real. So it was really, really difficult to maintain anything down, had a lot of nausea, didn't have any vomiting at that time. And guess what? I just also didn't have. I had no shortness of breath. I had no cough. I had no, at the time, I mean, that develops later, but at the time, there was just mostly this just predominant and prominent symptoms that were GI related. And at that time, about a day or a half a day went by, and that's when I knew I was highly concerned. And the reason I was so concerned, that we'll talk about a little bit after our stories about these takeaways that we want to give you, is because what is not being discussed as prominently is the non-respiratory symptoms that we need to be highly aware of, that can be highly prevalent in COVID-19. And currently in America, in the US, we're actually not testing the stools. So, that's something that we need to be aware of. And again, advocacy for yourselves to make sure, and myself included, stools not tested, right? Things like that you have to be aware of. Fast forward, again, shout out to my mogul family, my biological family, everyone who, in friends who are just outpouring of prayers, because definitely between the prayers and the regimen that I implemented, definitely I think sped up my recovery, so to speak. And because of that, being very diligent, again, once partially because I'm a doctor, but just being aware, right, in the first place, that GI symptoms can be prominent in this disease process too. And I don't necessarily have to rely on a test to take care of myself and to be diligent about my health and to advocate for myself as well, actually, in that matter. Not to mention 30 to 35%, put this in the comment section, 30%, approximately 30% of COVID-19 tests are false negatives, okay? I'm gonna repeat that, and I want you to put that in the comment section. This is not some number I made up, and this number is being consistently seen, not just in China, but also in other countries, and we're gonna increasingly see that data to be supported here in the US. Hence, advocate for yourself. 30% of the tests that are taken are false negatives, right? Not to mention that we're currently not robustly testing the stools for COVID-19 as well, okay? So my cough after about 4 or 5, maybe even 6 days of diarrhea, by that point I definitely was in quarantine. I was awaiting my test. It didn't come back as fast. Probably took me, ladies, I don't know how long y'all took, but mine took about 4 days, I think, to come back. But I stayed quarantined in the midst of that as a mom of a 7 and 5-year-old and a husband that he was the true rock star of this whole process and still is. You know, about day 5, I guess, is when I started to develop respiratory symptoms. Again, I would never say I couldn't breathe, but the cough and the heaviness of my chest started to be more pronounced. Now, some could say that could have been anxiety, but the cough is definitely not anxiety. So, you know, combining those two, again, staying robust and consistent and diligent with my regimen, and also my wherewithal of what things I could do to try to circumvent some of those symptoms is definitely what helped me. So I won't belabor that point too much, but that's kind of the trajectory of my experience with these symptoms. And also, yes, indeed, my test, also the swab, was negative. And I also have to say, unfortunately, one of the tests that was taken was, they gave me the swab, told me to swab myself. So how many thousands of Americans are swabbing themselves? That's a good question. So nonetheless, that's kind of my experience, and we'll share more about some great takeaways that I feel like will be very beneficial for you. Dr. Renee.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hodon and Dr. Zarinah, for sharing your stories. As Dr. Zarinah pointed out, my story is just a little bit different. But what is very similar, I think, is, you know, the hindsight, right? When you think about, oh, wait a minute, that probably was a symptom and I either took it for granted or, you know, just didn't realize. And, you know, one of the things that eventually, I guess, in the takeaways we'll talk about is just kind of how, you know, doctors are not necessarily super people, right? We experience things just like everybody else. But essentially, my story is a little bit different because I actually had not left my house in over 2 weeks. And I actually had not worked in months because I recently had a baby. So I'll get into that a little bit more, but I had not left my house actually in over 2 weeks. So before the whole shutdown thing happened, you know, was the last time I had left my house. And so with 2 small children, you know, it was really hard for me to, you know, get to the grocery store and go to all these different places and run errands. So I had to rely on my family members in my house to be able to do that. And so I literally was in the house. I never left. Yet, this thing made its way into my home. Yeah. And so, you know, when we talk about staying home, right? Stay home, stay safe. You can stay home and you could still potentially be unsafe because we all know that people have to go out and run errands. I eventually got off my maternity leave, if you will, the first time. And I had an assignment away from home. And I had worked for 2 days. And the way that my hospital is, I really didn't have much contact with patients, stayed most of the time in my call room, wiped down the whole hotel room I was in as well. So I know that that most likely was not the place that I had gotten infected. And on the third day of my assignment, my husband called me and let me know that a family member who was staying with us at one point actually tested positive. And she didn't find out until I was already away at work. And so I had to call my job and say, hey, look, you know, I had a positive exposure. And so that pretty much ended my assignment. Well, I didn't have any symptoms, so I thought. But that night, I literally soaked through my sheets, like soaked. I woke up, my shirt was completely wet, and apparently I most likely had a fever. But in hindsight, when I started thinking about it, I started thinking about the headache that I had had over the last 2 days, thinking I was on call. When I'm on call, I usually get a headache because my sleep is, you know, disturbed. It's not, you know, it's not restful sleep, and I usually get a headache. But now I'm thinking about it, and I think that was the first sign that I most likely was infected. Well, that night, like I said, I ended up soaking through my sheets. I think I had a fever. I didn't check, but I you know, it was apparent. So the next day I went to I called employee health, eventually ended up going to the testing site at the hospital. And, you know, I'm just going to talk about the test for a second here, because I don't know that a lot of people are talking about how the test is done.
Yes.
But that test was horrendous. It was absolutely horrendous. I mean, there's a swab that's, I'll use my straw here, that's about the length of a straw, smaller, okay, in diameter, but definitely about the length of a straw. And this swab was placed, I kid you not, it had to have been the length of this to where my finger is, all the way back into my nose and into my throat. In the first nostril that she did, I literally was taken aback. And I'm actually pretty good at taking medical tests, getting my blood drawn, everything. But I had to tell her to I needed a minute. Then she did the second one, and my nose bled profusely. I mean, it was so profuse. And so literally I was in the tent, the testing tent, longer than I needed to be, all because my nose was just bleeding so profusely. Eventually it slowed down. I got back into my car, and, you know, I literally just I started crying.
Mm-hmm.
I literally started crying because I was like, this is one of the worst experiences I've had in my life. I know I'm positive. In my mind, I knew I was positive. I started thinking about my children. They're very young, you know, thinking about my family, and just really just thinking about a lot of other things. And then trying to contemplate whether or not I should go home, because at this point I was about 2 to 2.5 hours away from home. But I also didn't want to get so sick that if something happened to me that my family couldn't see me or, you know where I was or whatever. So I decided to take the trip back home. And I tell you, the next few days was just, you know, an up and down of undulating fevers and chills. And one of the things that I didn't mention was that night, that I found out that my family member who was at our house was positive, my 7-month-old actually had a fever. And so we called the pediatrician and let the pediatrician know. And she said, well, you need to just presume that your infant is positive at this point. And I'll tell you, I was going to presume that because I was not going to allow anyone to do that test on my infant. So, you know, the next few days, like I said, just a bunch of undulating fevers, myself and my infant. We just soaked through our clothes, especially at night. He was a little bit irritable, but for the most part, he did very well. Myself, I just kept getting worse. I just really just kept getting worse. And about day 8 is when the shortness of breath kicked in. Mm-hmm. Now, the symptoms that I experienced were the headaches, the chills, the fevers, the loss of smell, not just loss of taste, but the most horrible taste the most horrible taste in my mouth. I describe it like dirty salt is what it tasted like. Everything that I put in my mouth, it just tasted like dirt and salt in my mouth. When I ate something sweet, it literally made like my glands burn. They literally burned. And anybody who knows me knows I'm a chocolate lover. I could not eat anything sweet at all. Once the shortness of breath kicked in, about day 8 is when I really started to get scared, because it was a short walk to the bathroom and I was huffing and puffing, and I almost went to the ER. My husband eventually ended up getting a pulse oximeter machine. It's a small machine that you put on your finger and you can check your oxygen level. Usually about 95 to 100% is normal. I at one point was down to 76, and that was with activity. So I decided stop moving. I just decided to stop moving, and just allow, my oxygen levels to be what they were supposed to be. Eventually, over about 4 days or so, it got better. But I think part of that was that I actually had to send my toddler away to be with his aunt, because I just could not keep up with him, and that was a really scary feeling as well, is that, I'm sending my son away, and I don't know that when he comes back, if I'm going to be here. And that was really, really scary for me. But eventually things got better. Thank goodness for the Mogul family. Thank goodness for my family. They checked on me every single day. I just have a lot of good friends around me, good family. And I'm just thankful that everyone was really just so caring and thoughtful and just checked on me, because I'm telling you, this illness hits you really hard, and you don't want to be alone if you don't have to be. So,
yeah. Thank you, Dr. Renee. I'm gonna fight back my own tears today. Smile there, just for the sake of the
It's an emotional thing.
It is.
It really is.
It's a very emotional thing. You kind of was hitting on some things that, reminded me of some moments,
Yeah.
And
yeah. When you think about your children, so it's scary.
It is scary. That's the other human part, right? That, we as doctors, we took our oath. We understand there's aspects to what we do that are risk. All of us have, had patients who have had contagious disease or illnesses.
Right.
This is obviously a very different kind of thing because of the severity and I think the velocity of
which the rapid nature,
get the rapidness of this disease that can come, and the quickness of it, and how quickly it can go bad. You mentioned a thing about the fluctuations even in your symptoms, and that I experienced it. I wonder if you did, Dr. Hodon, as well, in terms of you feel like, okay, I'm on the rise, and then you weren't. I would say my nights were the worst. I could have a good day, and then the night was like, what? It was really, really, really strange, and those were the worst moments for me, was at night, and again, alone. Yes, I'm in the home, so that was a blessing. But the nights were really, really difficult, and there's no one there. You don't even wish it. I wasn't going to call my husband, honestly, any second that I could resist it, because I didn't want him to be in that quarantine room. Right. So it's a lot of, like you said, that goes through your mind, and all of us are mothers of young children. How they coping is very difficult. Watching them through a window, they can't quite comprehend. They know coronavirus is out there, but they can't quite comprehend why they can't touch their mother, hug her, kiss her, be in front of her. That was like literally one day I was, and one day I wasn't, for however long. It's been a while now, right? So you definitely hit that on the head. Thank you for sharing your story. Again, I think a lot of us as physicians, there's a real climate out here. there are reality. Again, we're going to try to keep it as transparent as possible. There's a lot of our colleagues, and I respect them so that they can't speak their truth, not without a sense of feeling that there may be some repercussions. So I don't want you all to take this lightly either, that we're in front of you doing this live is not for self reasons.
Right.
It couldn't be, and not for the things that could potentially come from that. And just the reality of where we are in this climate today. This is about doctors who are also patients, but beyond that and bigger than that, I think, and I would love for you, Dr. Renee and Dr. Hodon, because I've seen you all posting, as all of us are recovering, some other realities that play into this, right? Because when we talk about, like you said, staying at home, people can get COVID-19 at home, but also the why we are saying stay at home. When we see a large group of people protest. It was a protest in Michigan, right? Or whatever. All of these different dynamics that are coming up. When we talk about the front lines, there's doctors, there's nurses, but there are also all these other essential workers who are frontline too, because they're having to walk out their home, and every day they leave their home, they have to come back home, and often to someone who didn't leave that home that day. Exactly. And the weight and the burden that we carry. I'm the only loose cannon in my household. Dr. Hodon, Dr. Renee, we can probably all relate. Someone is like a loose cannon in the household, and to carry that burden of knowing that you are the risky one coming back and potentially infecting your family is just a very, very heavy thing. Right. And I would say, honestly, I've been starting my regimen, if you will, to optimize my immune system even before I actually got sick. And I will say, to the point that I'm making about the gravity that we take every day on with us, I honestly wholeheartedly believe that my biggest weakness of my illness was stress and a lack of sleep, which we know as physicians will do a number on our immune system. And so in spite of doing all this vitamin C and zinc and things like that, I still got sick. And I still say, though, luckily, thankfully, all three of us were able to stay, I guess, out of the hospital in terms of long-term hospitalization. And I still think that has to speak to, what we did for ourselves. And that's where I would like to go next with this conversation. If we could explore and kind of share with our listeners here, what would we share with them? Like, we know as doctors, and because I knew this, or what I do know, this is the take home that you would like to offer our listeners today, so that they can leave this broadcast empowered and not feeling fearful, afraid, or hopeless, but empowered. If we could please share one or 2 points with them, I would love for you to start off with us, Dr. Hodon.
I would like to add, I got emotional with you, my sisters, as well too, as a mom. I'm in a hotel room by myself. So the hardest night, and I'll read my 2 points in, I promise, was like Sunday, where my blood pressure was 180 over 126. And I was so lightheaded. I fell back into the bed. And all I could think of was my kids. And the irony is, the next day, it came back down to like 150 to 100. So, and I don't know, at one point I fell asleep, or I just passed out. And I woke up in the morning, I was like, okay, thank God, because I couldn't drive myself and I didn't have energy to get out of the room. So I was like, I can't call my husband because he's in the hotel, like by the time ambulance gets here. So I had all these negative thoughts. I said my prayers, alhamdulillah. And I woke up the next day and I was like, I can't fight this, because my luckily I had my pulse oximetry that could check my oxygen. I've sent my colleagues, my medical moguls, my friends, I've sent pictures at times of either me coughing or my blood pressure or my pulse ox, and it was the lowest it had been, like I think like 89 or something. And I'm like, I just woke up and I still feel out of breath and I can't get a break, but I still felt really lightheaded. So I did go to the ER, but my husband told me, around 1:30, our youngest woke up saying, I don't want to go there. And he was pointing to the ground. And I'm thinking, like, I felt like I was dying. And I'm like, my kid has ESP with me. So it's not about, I'm not scared about me dying, or like when people say that as mothers, we're not scared of us dying. Like we accept it, whatever your beliefs are, it's my time. I believe in Allah. It's my time. It's my time. But to not be there for your children, and not have a mother, that was the worst feeling that I had. And it still haunts me, but I'm like, I'm going to keep going. So my biggest thing is don't be stubborn. Go when it gets bad, not trying to hold it in like I shouldn't have at Sunday night, to the point I couldn't drive myself anymore. And tell your family how you're doing, be honest, and know that just because it's negative doesn't mean I'm going to rush home to you. It's really hard explaining to my toddler 5-year-old and 2-year-old that I told them, my parents, thank you to my parents and my husband who are holding down the fort at home. I said, show the video to them. I need them to see how mommy is sick. Mm-hmm. And they need to understand mommy is sick. Mommy can't come home to you. And it's not that mommy's hanging out at a hotel. And like, mommy, can we come and swim in your pool? Like, no, mom, we're not hanging out. I'm getting better, so I don't make you sick. So they understand that even as a 5-year-old and a 2.5-year-old, they're understanding more of that now as a family. So that is my biggest point. I wanted to at least say, share it with your family, even the little kids. I'm sorry. And be honest with your kids to the point, but not, scare them too much, but let them know that somebody's got to get better. Somebody's going to be in a room. Someone's going to be quarantined, and what a quarantine really means. And then I would say, don't be afraid to show your fear to your family and your loved ones. You can't hold it inside, and let your fear out. Pray, and have faith that you'll get through this. It's a lot in the mindset. I'm going to keep moving. I don't care if it's 89. I'm going to keep moving if my oxygen went down, but I'm going to sit down to gather myself. Then I'm going to get back up in a few moments if I can, because that's what it wants you to do. It wants you to crawl into bed, not move, and take over. And so you cannot let that happen to you. And I really appreciate Dr. Stam for being, she was already my doctor before, and she encouraged me as I was working. Even before this, I was taking the precautions to go get my vitamin. I have vitamin deficiencies, to go get my vitamin shots. I even got my IV vitamin infusion. And I think it kept me going when this thing, because you don't know how many times you're exposed. And so us as care in the healthcare field, we can get exposed multiple times, and so the viral load that we get, it may not be just once. And the people that are in the grocery stores, or in the police officers, the paramedics, you getting that load and load and load and load. So your body, you got to do things, put your wellness first. I was on that journey, and I still have work to do, but getting that vitamins up, like I do take the zinc, like the vitamin C and the vitamin B, and work on those. And then, but also sleep and what we lack, right? And rest, what we lack. So you can be strong all you want, and you can say I've handled so much before, but if you don't sleep, if you don't drink water, if you don't rest, if you don't keep up with your wellness, it can hit you pretty hard. So thank you, Dr. Zarinah, Dr. Renee, too, for your support and encouragement. Family, Medical Mogul family, everybody, thank you. And Facebook family and friends, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Hodon, for sharing all of those take homes. Those are just super, super important. I appreciate also our listeners here who are jotting all this information down. Again, hopefully it's going to be helping you and helping someone else. Dr. Renee, please do share with us too. Maybe you have some take homes for our listeners so that, again, we can do this together.
Sure. My situation, again, was a little different in that, by the time I got home, I had to presume that my children were actually positive. And so with my children being so young, there's no explanation for them, right, to actually understand. My son, my oldest, is not even 3 yet. and I have an infant. So there's no concept of, mommy is sick. There's no concept of, mommy has to stay in this room. And, they also had some symptoms. My infant had more fevers. My oldest had cough, mostly at night. It's funny, but I actually never got a cough. Till this day, I actually never got a cough. But I will say, if you are in the situation where either because of the age of your children or because of the configuration of your home, that it is hard for you to quarantine and actually wall yourself off from your family, just try your very best to be as safe as possible, right? So even if you can't ward yourself off from your family, continue to take the precautions of wiping things down, potentially if you have a mask, wear it at home, wash the little one's hands constantly. Just try your best, because not everybody is in a situation where they can ward themselves off. If you're a single mother and you have children, what can you do? You can't go into a room and leave your kids to fend for themselves. So I know that we are telling people that, well, you need to just kind of separate yourself from your family, but everyone is not able to do that for whatever reason, good, bad, or otherwise. So I would say, continue to take those precautions if you are in a situation where you cannot quarantine yourself off from your family, because that was kind of my situation. The other thing that I would say is in lines of your own health is, if you are, and I think I posted this in my post, but if you are experiencing that horrible taste in your mouth, when I tell you it really does suppress your appetite, you have to eat.
Yes.
And that for me was something that I had to do so consciously, because honestly, if I could have gone literally 5 days without eating,
Mm-hmm.
my appetite was so suppressed and anything I put in my mouth was just so horrible that any appetite that I did have, it just went away. And you have to do that consciously. You cannot heal yourself without eating. You just cannot. There's no medication that can replace a nutrient. It just won't happen. You have to be able to accept nutrients in your body in order to be able to build a defense system against this and any other illness that you have. So please, if you find yourself, with your appetite so very suppressed, you have to force yourself to eat. You have to force yourself to eat. There were times when I just really didn't feel like eating. And then I look at my children and I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to have to swallow this pill, quote unquote, swallow this pill, not a true pill, but literally, drink this soup,
Yes.
eat this rice, eat this, whatever it was, preferably something healthy. But even if it's not healthy, just eat something. You have to have some nutrients in your body. Again, preferably something healthy, but whatever it is, just don't stop eating. Especially if you are diabetic. Especially if you are diabetic, you need those nutrients. You are very susceptible. The tipping point for you is just an edge away. You have to eat. So please, do yourself a favor and just do that very consciously, and understand that, like Dr. Hodon said, like, this disease wants to slow you down. And I know I mentioned that I stopped moving. When I say I stopped moving, I mean I stopped moving so much, which is why I ended up sending my toddler away. But you have to continue to have some level of activity, some level of breathing exercises. You have to just, continue to be very conscious of the fact that this disease wants to slow you down. And if you allow it to, it will. It truly, truly will. So, those are two things that I would say. If you can't quarantine, continue to take precautions and continue to, give yourself some substance, because you will need it.
Yeah. Those are all amazing. Thank you so much. And again, thank you so much for everyone that is getting this information down. These are really, really critical points and tips and takeaways that Dr. Hodon and Dr. Renee have given them. And this is, again, doctors as patients, which you knew, because a lot of us are patients out there, right? And we're not doctors. So some of this is second nature to us, but we don't want to take that for granted. So for me, I definitely echo everything that they said as it relates to takeaways. I also, I'm kind of gonna come from a perspective of, advocacy. And for me, and what I mean by that, advocating for yourself at all costs. We're not in a position as human beings or as Americans to rely on corporate structures or infrastructures to fight for your life. We're not in that position. We don't have that luxury. And we're not going to allow it, as best I have breath in my lungs. I'm not going to allow it for me and mine, and you are mine too. I care about everyone that's listening. You could hear me. We care about you. So we are not allowing ourselves, and this is not a political statement. This is a humanity statement, okay? This is a humanity statement saying that we have to be more self-reliant and self-dependent on being empowered with information that is correct and accurate to feed ourselves. The sustenance that Dr. Renee just spoke on, I'm going to take that to I'm broadening that sustenance that she's speaking on in terms of the physical sustenance, but also the mental sustenance, okay? We have to make sure that we are empowering ourselves with information that is going to feed our souls, right? Feed our minds so that we can actually beat this thing together. The medication does not always lie inside of the four walls of that hospital. And I'm saying that as a doctor. I'm saying that as a doctor who goes into those four walls, that, those are important. Obviously, I'm a physician. I feel like those are structures and infrastructures in place to help people who need it. But really, as anybody who's been following me knows, that I'm a prevention type of doctor. At the end of the day, I'm trying to empower us to realize that when they talk about the comorbidities and the pre-existing conditions that are affecting people at a larger, more alarming number, in particular people of color, that's not a joke. That's a real thing. Mm-hmm. And right at the second, if you're in the position that you have a positive COVID-19 test, again, everything that Dr. Hodon and Dr. Renee just offered you is critical for you to get better. And for those of you who are not COVID-19 positive, or you don't know that you are, because I presume everybody is until otherwise noted. However, if you currently are not exhibiting any symptoms, you're currently otherwise negative, I beg of thee to get your health in check. If you're diabetic, this is the time to reduce your risk by getting inside of yourself as it relates to our health. And Dr. Renee spoke to that as well. Dr. Hodon, your body, when you have this virus, it wants to shut you down. Like a pile of bricks, it wants to shut you down. Mm-hmm. And we have to fight. Okay, and we don't want to get in that mode, right? My take home is about prevention, getting your vitamins into your body, and I prefer food. Okay, but if you can't have access to that as readily, then there's a plethora of vitamins out here, and we can leave some links definitely below after the broadcast and after we let people know how they can find us and such. But at the end of the day, we're really talking about health is wealth. That never ends, and that's still true, if not more true today than it ever has been. And I say that with as far as mental health as well as physical health. I implore you, I beg of thee, actually, I beg of you all to really dig deep and start to take away one thing that you know is killing you, is bad for you. Take that one thing. If it's soda, put it in. Let's be accountable to each other right now. Matter of fact, y'all know how I let it get into action. So if you listen to us, I say 63 people here right now, put in that comment section right now. What is one thing that you can take away today that is going to promote your life instead of declining your life? Put it in there. Let us help you be accountable. I'm saying it right now. I put mine in there, soda. Okay, Dr. Hood said soda. Every blue moon I used to do that. I didn't have a soda in about 6 weeks, but my guilty pleasure used to be a soda. Not gonna put another one in my mouth, right? Let's keep ourselves accountable to each other, because I love y'all too much to not do so. Okay, that's my primary takeaway, is to get into yourself, so to speak, so that we can be more preventative and more accountable to ourselves, love on ourselves. That's the whole point about MVP. That's not to be cliche. It's about understanding that we must, for once and for all, become the most valuable person for ourselves in our lives, because you deserve it. You're worthy. That's what this is about. That is what this is about. And if anything, to take home, I feel like beauty can come out of this pandemic. We can all thrive, even in the midst of this. But it is a mindset. It is a pivot shift. And my takeaway is about that more than anything. Get into yourself. Get into yourself so that we can stay empowered about how to get in front of it and not be reactionary human beings to the situation. And I don't rely on corporate structures to determine if a bandana is good or not. Okay,
yes.
If I should wear a mask or not. If I have access to a mask and they want to fire me because I don't want to wear it, you don't get to make that choice about my life.
You don't get to validate my life.
You don't get to validate my life. Hashtag you don't get to validate my life, as Dr. Hodon put that on a social media square. Yeah. You don't get to validate my life. That is what this is about. My take home is put yourself first. And that is not selfish. Right. That is the most self-loving thing that you can do. And that's the most important thing we can all do to make sure that other people don't get sick.
Yes. Yep. Yes. Absolutely.
That's my take home. Sorry.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that message is so powerful, Dr. Z, because, you know, especially when you talk about the corporate structures, and I think I shared this a little bit more privately, but there was a situation in which, my status was shared as negative when it obviously was positive. I let it be known that I was positive, yet it was shared with others that it was negative. And that for me was so disheartening. I get really emotional about that because for me, I'm like, I never want to be someone who is thought of as dishonest, especially dishonest to the point where I am putting people in danger. I'm a doctor.
Yes.
I'm a doctor. I would never, ever put someone in danger, especially not their health. I mean, that I have wanted to be a doctor since I was 3. And now, in my 40s, that's when I'm going to start deciding to put people's health in danger? No way. And for me, I can only speculate that the reason that my status was lied about was because people want people to keep working. Yes, and I understand that. I understand that. The hospitals are inundated. We need doctors, we need nurses, but you know what? Their families need them too. Their families need them too.
Amen.
And, and they need their families. And if they don't know that they've had a positive exposure, then perhaps the way that we talked about the hindsight, you understand? The way we talked about the hindsight, because we didn't know that we had the exposure, is the way that they will eventually talk about hindsight. And the thing about this, COVID-19 coronavirus, you have to get in front of it. You have to get in front of it. It's not everybody who can endure the hindsight. Right. It's not everybody who can endure the hindsight. You've got to get in front of it. And if you're not understanding the true nature of your situation, of your surroundings, of your environment, when you've had a positive exposure, then you may not necessarily change certain behaviors, right? Like you may decide, I'm going to go home to my elderly parents instead of go somewhere else where my elderly parents are not.
Right.
That makes a huge difference.
Huge.
Yeah.
It makes a huge difference. And we cannot allow the corporate structure and the need for, physicians and nurses to keep working to then translate into us and our families dying.
Not at all.
That for me is completely, it's depraved. It is that has been my word of the week. It's been depraved because I have just seen way too much carelessness for human life in a time when we should really be caring about human life, you know? So I'm sorry I got a little bit on a soapbox, but
it was very important.
This was about, because as physicians, again, we're as patients, we're human, which is why we opened this up. You know, we're doctors, but before that, we are human beings. So we are going through and seeing the same things. We live in this country as citizens. You know, we're mothers and daughters. So no, thank you for humanizing it. Thank you for, it's no soapbox. These are the conversations that if you're not having them with your family, you need to be having these conversations. We all need to be having these conversations with ourselves, because that's the community, right? We say social distancing. I don't say social distancing. I say physical distancing, social connect. Okay, we have to continue to connect.
Exactly.
So no soapbox whatsoever. And if that was a soapbox for some, I'm sorry, this is not the platform for you. That's not for, you know, not for everybody. We're not for everybody. But this is a conversation that's going to be real, transparent, authentic, and from the heart. So no, thank you for that. Thank you for that. And definitely, Dr. Hodon, if you had any more to share, because I know I've also been watching your page too. And again, we're highlighting things that are critical for our listeners to understand, because at the end of the day, you know, there are no do-overs. And as physicians, this is what we do. We advocate for human life at all costs. No matter who it is. Every patient that I see could be my mother, my father. Anybody who's ever worked with me knows that that's, if you want to get Dr. Hood upset, because I walk in smiling. They'll call me a smiling doctor. I smile every day. I literally do. But when you mess with my patient, the patient care is compromised because of negligence or error or willful ignorance. Unacceptable. Because that's someone's mother, sister, brother, father, could be mine. And it's going to be treated as such. So no, thank you for that. Thank you. No apologies needed. Dr. Hodon, please.
Thank you, Dr. Zarinah and Dr. Renee. Like you said, if you don't want to hear this, then this is not the platform for you. But we are going to be transparent. And at the times, you know, some of our colleagues cannot speak up. They're scared to share their experiences. They're scared to share if they have it, because it's that hush hush mentality. Like you said, you want people to keep working. We are more than just another warm body. We do no harm. We take that oath seriously, and we need to take that oath on our lives. We're not the best patients. I can say that myself too. We put ourselves before others. We take care of others, but this is not the time to sacrifice our lives, because what's the point? It takes 10 years to make a doctor, right? And we have families. Our families need us. They made the sacrifice with us to get to where we are at. And our communities need us. So we can't be lost for a $9 mask, a $2, $3 shield. Where there's a will, there's a way. And we have shown in our history and throughout world history, when you want to get something done, it can be done. So, and I will say that, I shared with the people that I thought I might have exposed, hey, my test was negative, but guess what? I'm not doing so well. I'm not doing so great. So I'd rather you hear it from me, because I cannot expect somebody else to speak for me. And so that's one of the ways of breaking the silence, is actually reaching out as best as you can, which is hard to say in case, hey, I don't know when it started for me, but I just want to let you know how I'm doing, and be really compassionate to each other. Because when somebody is not working, they didn't just take off to leave dump work for you, okay? And when you're down, you really find out who's there for you. And just calling and texting your colleagues when they're down makes a difference. And I appreciate those who have reached out to me, because I would be on like a clockwork checking on them too. I held down the fort for you, and I expect you to hold down the fort for me with no guilt intentions, And as physicians, we also have to be honest with ourselves. We can have health conditions that limit us, and it doesn't mean we're weak. It doesn't mean that we cannot handle it. We actually take a chance, even with those conditions, to the point that we put our health and lives at risk. And so when we do fall down, show that compassion, show that support. And because the work will get covered, that doesn't matter. But what people remember is how you're treated when you're the most sickest. And I say that to my fellow, those in medicine, in dentistry, pharmacy, the grocery workers, don't be upset that not more people are coming in. Maybe they're really sick. Maybe they have issues. There's something else going on with their lives. Just continue to show that passion for people. And the other thing I would say is, as physicians, protect yourself, and nurses and pharmacists and the respiratory therapists, okay? The paramedics, if you don't get the supply, find it some other way. We are sharing ways we can get supplies. I'll leave it at there was a group of 10 nurses that were just recently suspended, okay, in California. I forget the name, starts with an S, so somebody correct me, but in California, and they said, we're not going to go in and take care of COVID patients without our specialized N95 mask that protects us from that virus.
That's right.
And it just took one. I'm not saying start a riot or a war here, but we are in war. We are on the battlefield.
Yes,
and if we don't have the right protection, and you're telling us to go in, and we fall down, you're still going to find somebody else to replace us,
That's right?
Right? So what those 10 nurses did, I'm so proud of them. They said no. And also Dr. Mingling, the ER doctor in Washington, was, I can't watch and be silent. When you're silent, you're complacent. When you're quiet, you are a part of the problem.
Yep.
So those 10 nurses stepped away. And guess what? The next day, they got those N95 masks.
That's right.
So there's a will, there's a way. Please don't tell me there isn't enough. You can find it. Yes, there's not enough, but you can find it for those people that are in extreme areas, of those that have much more viral load, who are taking care of specifically COVID patients.
That's right.
They, of all people, at first should get that masks.
That's
and
right.
As an OBGYN, to the pregnant healthcare workers, you don't need to be working with COVID-19. I put that post of the young, beautiful nurse in England that died at 28 years of age. We have all these policies that go back and forth, and it's based on supply and demand.
That's right.
And my life is not based on supply and demand.
That's
like
right.
I said, like Dr. Zarinah said, I don't need a validation to say that, sure, I will go into the fire without even my protection. The firefighters don't do that.
Exactly.
They put their protection before they walk into that burning house. So that young woman lost her life and did not need to be working with COVID patients. Our pregnancies, when we're in that state, we're immune compromised. And Dr. Renee, as my fellow OBGYN, you know it.
That's right.
And so we die from the flu, and we have vaccines for that.
That's right.
Now. And what do we tell our mom? Please take the flu vaccine.
We have pregnant women dying from the flu, which we already have a vaccine for. And so now we're asking pregnant women to work with COVID patients. And for me, I think, again, it's just the depravity of
completely,
yeah.
And we when we do this together, there's power in that. It's a cliche, but it's a cliche for a reason, because it's real. I don't allow people to stand alone. I don't. When I see something, I just can't. And I encourage us all to be that way. Don't allow people to stand alone. We just can't. And that's the way that we push things forward. So when you see change, there's a need for a change, this live, anyone could do this. We just have to have more voices to do so, because this is what is necessary for us to, decide, again, that we validate our own lives. We don't need permission, right? We don't need permission to validate our lives, and we won't stand for that. And that is actually what this conversation underlining is all about, quite frankly. It's empowering anyone who can hear the sound of our voice. We actually could go on and on and on, but with the goal to try to stay, punctual here, we started a little bit late, so that's why I let us go a little later.
Thank you.
But I would love for you all to let our listeners know how you can be reached, so they can continue to follow your push and your desires across social media or wherever they can find you. Please, Dr. Hodon and Dr. Renee, and we will definitely, I'm sure people want to know, how can they reach you? Where can they find you? Dr. Hodon.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Zarinah. Thank you, Dr. Renee. This has been an honor to speak with you, and thank you for really sharing our story and allowing us to be transparent. Thank you to the viewers, our medical mogul family, our families, our friends, our And I wanted to say you can follow me at Dr. Hodon, DRHODON, on all social media platforms. Under Twitter, it's DR_HODON.
And Dr. Renee Darko, actually it's DRRENEE DARKO. Pretty much all over social media, and drreneedarko.com as well. So thank you so much, everyone, for listening to our stories, and Dr. Zarinah for for inviting us, Dr. Hodon for sharing your story and being very transparent as well.
Thank you, ladies, so much. It's been a blessing for y'all to share this time with us tonight. I really, really appreciate that. It takes courage and stamina. I know definitely at this time, and just we really, really appreciate it. Those of you guys know me. If you don't, I'm Dr. Zarinah, also known as Dr. Z. I'm a sports medicine integrated pain management specialist. I don't think I even said that in the beginning. I help individuals, groups, and corporations go from pain to pain freedom long-term, from the inside out and the outside in. And I'm helping do that through platforms just like this, Rebound Your Health TV, as well as CEO of Rebound Sports and Rehab LLC, which is a medical practice, as well as launching very soon. You can actually find a Nature's Freedom Health, which is an all natural online, no GMO, GMP certified supplement line that you can find at bit.ly/Nature's Freedom. That's bit.ly/Nature's Freedom. Again, it's about empowering. We have to definitely get there. And again, Dr. Zarinah across all social medias is DRZARINAH across all social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, you name it. All right. That does it for us on this episode of Rebound Your Health TV. Thank you so very much, Dr. Renee and Dr. Hodon. I cannot thank you enough for sharing this platform with our audience. It's just been a true blessing. We took it, from medical to humanity to keeping it real. And that's what this is all about. Please, you all, don't forget, follow these ladies on social media. They are the truth. As you can see, their hearts lead. They lead with their hearts, but they're extremely brilliant, as you also could tell. And follow all the beautiful things and amazing things that they're doing, not only in this world, but internationally. These are nationally and internationally recognized physicians. So get into it, follow them. As you just saw, hopefully the people, y'all been typing their handles into the comment section, but in case you missed it, their handles are also in the caption above. We can't wait to see y'all again. Please be your own MVP, and we will see y'all next time. God bless.
God bless. Thank you.